Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Quantum Connection podcast. I'm Heather Crimson, your host, with my co-host Vanessa Baldwin. And today we are very privileged to have a very cool guest here. She has a cool shirt on too, and she's all the way from the UK. And her name is Dr. Sara Pugh. And she is an anti-aging specialist, and she actually has a pretty significant research background with biochemistry and genetics and molecular mechanisms and biophysics. She's worked on protein folding and statins and cholesterol and all kinds of really cool stuff. So she knows her science in and out, frontwards and backwards. So we're really, really excited to get into some science today. So welcome to the show, Dr. Sara.
Oh, thank you very much, Heather and Vanessa. It's been great to finally meet you because we arranged this ages ago and then everything was all over the place because I'm actually in the US at the moment. So there's lots we can talk about with doing quantum biology in different countries because I'm in Georgia, so it's wildly different weather to the UK. I think we're talking. Are we talking about sunlight today, or are we just going to let it rock and see where we end up?
Well, sunlight's a good place to start, right? Vanessa, you have some questions about that. But I want to know first, Dr. Sara, do you want me to just call you Sara, Dr.
Oh yeah, just no, call me Sarah, please. Yes.
Like, what do you notice immediately once you adjust to the circadian, your circadian rhythm there? What do you notice physiologically with the sunlight in Georgia versus where you live at home?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, first of all, with the sun here, because we have the UVI index, this is like, say, at midday has gone up to about 11. So that's, whereas in the UK, it's probably about 4 at the moment. But I think because it's just sunnier, you just instantly just feel this wave of, I just feel so good, like all my worries go away. If I go out and lie in my friend's backyard, it doesn't matter what's going on. I just feel this wave of instantly feeling better. But I think also just sort of generally, when you see a blue sky, it just makes you feel happy. But I think when we talk about sunlight, there isn't anybody that would argue to say when it's a beautiful day, it's really hard to feel miserable. Whereas when it's grey and cloudy, even though there's lots of benefits to going out when there's no sun, we just, overall, we don't feel as sort of joyous. But I think also traveling from somewhere like a high latitude or bad weather to somewhere with good weather, the jet lag, I didn't really have any jet lag. There could have been another factor in it, but I think the more I learn about circadian biology and quantum, the less I can mitigate it. But it's quite common knowledge that if you travel to the US from the UK, the jet lag isn't too bad, but going back to the UK again, the jet lag's worse. But I think it loops back to what you say. I'm going back to the UK from somewhere. I'm going back to sort of slightly worse weather, more clouds, less UV light, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I would say. Definitely, I've noticed arriving here. It looks beautiful. Then I'm doing a sort of experiment at the moment, I'm in a vitamin D rabbit hole because there's lots of different sorts of vitamin D, not just one. And again, the vitamin D we make from the sun is just way superior to any that we get from food. And again, supplementation isn't a good idea at all.
That's a good rabbit hole. I like that one. Can we talk about a little bit about what the difference is between getting vitamin D from sunlight? Because people will say that all the time. Well, I can just take a pill for my vitamin D. And I'm like, well, it's not exactly the same. So what would you say about that, if you don't mind?
Oh no, first of all, I would say that there's 15 different kinds of vitamin D because there's a big long pathway that because vitamin D gets activated eventually in the kidney, but there's sort of loads of steps. So in each one of these steps, that it's not just a route to vitamin D, they all have functions and properties as well. Then on a sort of quantum basis, the vitamin D from the sun has been programmed by light. So it's carrying energy and information, and it's important as part of our energy status, whereas the pill you buy is sort of dead and it's just come from a factory. Then if we think about lab tests people could actually get, you can get the storage vitamin D. That's the regular test that normally comes back in a lab. But then there's the active vitamin D that loads of people don't test for because it's more expensive because you must freeze the sample instantly, and only Quest does that, so not LabCorp and other places. And that you need those ratios because if you're measuring a storage vitamin D, it's not very informative, and people can have access to the active vitamin D, and you get more information from the active vitamin D, so it's just a slightly different variation. That then the next point to make is that vitamin D and vitamin A they're paired sort of compound. So if you take a lot of vitamin D supplement, you're, first of all, it is actually toxic in high doses anyway, and you're going to disrupt your vitamin A signaling, but also you're going to shut down your own natural production of all 15 of these other kinds of vitamin D, and we don't fully understand what they're doing yet. So that's why I'm not an advocate of it. But also there's lots of data to show that having astronomically high vitamin D levels aren't beneficial anyway. So this is people like Jim Stevenson Jr. and Morley Robbins. There's plenty of podcasts with them around, and it's just back to this idea of, you know, we're fiddling with a system that we don't understand, and people are not even measuring the right vitamin D labs to start with. So, you know, but also part of the reason people will say, oh yes, it shows people with more vitamin D are healthier, but maybe those people went outside more in the sun, and the reason they're healthier is they were just outside in the sun more, and their vitamin D levels getting the credit, whereas being outside was what's actually making them healthier.
Yeah. And if we get it from sunlight, we're never going to have a toxic dose, right? It's going to modulate appropriately, right? Where our body's going to do what it needs to do with it. So yeah, 100%. Love that. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, because you can't overdose, you know, your body, because the more tanned you get, the more melanin you have, the harder it is to make vitamin D. So it does act as a sort of shield anyway, a natural one. So exactly as you said, it's all intricately regulated either at the biochemical level, but like you said, that, you know, we just make more melanin, or it gets too hot and we just don't go out in the direct rays and stay more in the shade.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, melanin's a great topic to go into.
Yeah.
Also, that's another amazing topic. You know, a lot of us think, okay, melanin, it's our tan, it's our natural sunblock, which it is, but it's way more than that. And I've heard you talk a lot about, you know, how it's deep inside of the cells and all of that, which it is, it's everywhere, you know, and then how it actually splits and makes hydrogen. And that's like an antioxidant that it is, right? An electron donor, which I think is all really cool, of course, because it's selective, right? Am I understanding that correctly? Like it goes where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Kind of like earthing, right? When you're earthing as well, the electrons go where they need to go, right?
Yeah,
When
definitely.
your body needs it. So it's a lot different than taking an antioxidant, say, like if I'm going to take, I don't know, like a supplemental antioxidant, right? Getting it when your body makes it through its melanin production or from earthing or whatever. That's a different whole system too, right? You want to explain that?
Oh, absolutely. Because the important thing here is with the exclusion zone water, which covers everything in our body, it excludes everything apart from a few minerals and then hydrogen and electrons. So hydrogen and electrons are antioxidants or reducing agents. So they're small enough to get through all the hydration shells through the exclusion zone, whereas something big like a supplement can't get through because it's too big. So that's why exactly what you said, absolutely spot on, that we can either ground and collect electrons, which is sort of it's also like a kind of magnetic effect, and like you said, they'll just go where they're needed, and they can get anywhere. They can go really deep in the cell and get into the mitochondria, like the hydrogen and the electrons can get in there. But also again with the melanin, it can produce effectively energy, because electrons are sort of electric charge, and then hydrogen's a universal energy donor as well, so we can make our own hydrogen and electrons. But also I think what I think is really interesting about hydrogen is it also ties into the methylation cycle, that when the gut microbiome can't make enough hydrogen, this then impacts whether it can make methane and methyl groups, which then impact methionine, which then impact for people who are listening, that they just would know it as MTHFR or methylation problems. So I think having more melanin and more hydrogen is also going to help with, you know, people who think that they need to take methylated X, Y, and Z, whereas actually if they made more melanin, that would be, because there's lots of pathways in the body that indirectly tie in, but also sunlight triggers lots of sulfation reactions, and sulfation is also an important part of charging up certain steps in the folate and the methionine cycle, which is to do with methylation. So it kind of digressed a little bit, but that's something that people aren't always aware of, that the hydrogens are also important for methylation. And again, melanin is like a black hole pigment. so it can absorb everything in the electromagnetic spectrum. So it does offer a little bit of protection, but it also can bind to certain compounds. And again, people who are interested in methylation probably know that it's part of detox pathway, but then melanin itself, things can bind to melanin, and because it's constantly being remodeled and broken down and moved about, it can also help shuttle toxins, metals and things out of the body without having to do anything harsh to yourself. The toxins can just get escorted out slowly and quietly. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of melanin. But also I think, is it Dr. Herrera, he also has this I think, I'm not sure exactly sure if it's a theory or he's got studies behind, but he's a phenomenally intelligent man, that melanin can also form water as well. So again, that would be able to help build our water battery, because again, grounding, as you mentioned, we suck in electrons, and that can help expand our water battery, and that's ultimately what powers us, and that's what gives us our redox. And the more redox or voltage we've got, the less attractive we are to microbes and microorganisms, the more energy and more health we've got. So I think there's that other aspect of melanin, that it's very likely it can make water as well. And also it breaks down, it can, oxygen will come out as well. And oxygen's the terminal electron acceptor in the mitochondria, and if we don't have enough oxygen, we could have what we call pseudo hypoxia. So that was David Sinclair's paper in 2013. So melanin's also able to provide oxygen so that water can get made in the mitochondria and complete the electron transport chain. So the electrons getting from complex 1 to complex 4, the quicker they do it, the better or healthier it'll be. That's mitochondrial heteroplasmy in a way. So if it's all spread out, that's higher heteroplasmy rate or bad mitochondria. So if they get quickly down the electron transport chain to the oxygen, make the water, that's a really important aspect of being healthy, because sometimes it's kind of sort of just simple things like that to explain to people what heteroplasmy rate is, because I'm sure some of them have heard of that word.
Right, how effectively your mitochondria are functioning over the years and the percentage of decrease in their effectiveness over the years, heteroplasmy rate, right?
Yes, yeah, but it's actually how far apart are the respiratory proteins, because that's correct. That's sort of how efficient they are. But then some people say, well, what's the next layer underneath that? So the further apart the respiratory proteins, the longer it takes for them to get from 1 to 4, and they tend to spread out as we get older. But we can do things to squash them back together again. And again, if there wasn't enough oxygen, the electrons would be going down, but there's nothing for them to complete the cycle with. So that would cause sort of the chain to open up. So melatonin actually squashes the chain a bit. Cold thermogenesis does. That's why that can be anti-aging. So there are things we can do to stop the heteroplasmy rate going crazy both ways. Like we can do things to make it worse, and then there are things we can do to help. But ultimately, it is just going to like spread out. But we don't want it to happen too fast.
Can we talk a little bit about what makes it worse? You want to mention what makes
what would open the well, first of all, eating excessive carbs out of season in blue light and non-native EMF environment, because with seasonal and local carbohydrates, you want to, it's sort of tied to how much ultraviolet light there is. So eating carbs in the UK at the moment isn't a good idea because there's not enough light, whereas you can do it here. But sort of not every day. So it's because the electrons from the carbs go through complex number 1, and that leaks a bit. So if you're eating lots of sugar all the time and always running electrons through complex 1, the electrons don't get to the end of the run. They don't get to complex 4. They escape, and we would call that a free radical. And then it starts to make the mitochondria swell, or the respiratory proteins get further apart. So obviously eating too much sugar all the time, that would spread out the mitochondria. Also things which disturb them sort of on a quantum level, like non-native EMFs, like white noise in the background, that again is going to cause chaos and disturbance, and that again can contribute to the heteroplasmy rate. Unfortunately, it's got a hereditary factor as well, because there are unfortunate people who've inherited mitochondria that are not as good as somebody else's, and heteroplasmy rate is more than 10% every decade, and it starts a bit earlier. So unfortunately, there are people that have got mitochondria, and within the mitochondrial DNA, there's an unfortunate. But again, it doesn't mean it's all over. You just have to unfortunately make more effort, because we all know people who do everything wrong and are still healthy, and then there are other people that do everything right, and it's a constant battle. So it's again, if people have got not the best mitochondria, it doesn't mean it's all over. You just have to up your quantum game and sort of try harder.
Well, that's why epigenetics comes into play, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really tailor your lifestyle and your choices to what you came in with, and like tying it back to the melanin. So that's why sunlight, all the things you explained, Sarah, about how melanin works and the mitochondria and the electron transport chain are all tied to light, just to kind of zero in on that for people. And the light and the electrons from the earth and all of our environment, all of these things are contributing to or impacting how our mitochondria are functioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And also back to Vanessa's point about gathering electrons, all electrons are identical until you fill them up with light. So that's the photoelectric effect. So again, exactly as Heather said, that the light is the driver of the electrons being useful. If you've got electrons that are dark with no light, then it's not the same as a nicely charged up electron, and it carries information as well. So light's energy and information. So it's not just about just charge. The information from the sunlight is so important for our circadian rhythm or our clocks, because we've got like the master clock. Each organ has a clock. There's clocks in our cells, clocks in our DNA, and there's numerous studies to show the more accurate your clocks are, the better your health span and lifespan. So back to, again, that's nothing to do with genetics. You choose whether you get up and see the sunrise. You choose whether you watch a whole box set every night until 2 a.m. So even if you might not have the best mitochondria, exactly as Heather said, you can control a lot more of your environment and the epigenetics than you think. So never to think, oh no, I'm doomed, because I suppose the genes load the crossbow, but then the environment pulls the trigger.
Yeah, beautifully said, right? We have and that I love that. I think that's so empowering when I learned all that, because we have a lot of control here, right? Because I was born with a low constitution. My mitochondria wasn't that effective. This is why I wound up with a lot of health issues, right? But as the more I do all the circadian quantum practices and implement all these things, right, I'm so much healthier, right? So it's like we can reverse these things. We have power here, right? You can make choices for to improve your mitochondria and get your gene expression back in the right place. So yeah, it's amazing.
Oh no, I love that, because it's always great when you meet somebody who's the person you've just been talking about, somebody who struggled with health issues and didn't, maybe your mother or your grandmother or your great-great-grandmother passed down some mitochondria that weren't quite as good as they could be, but it just goes to show that you can change it, but also then you've got the power to change the mitochondria for your generation. I mean, do you have children
yeah, I already have kids. Yeah, but I'm working on it, because we're also classical homeopaths as well, so we're working on reversing some of those things, because that actually has the power to do that. So,
yeah, exactly. And also I think that getting into the quantum stuff is not just for us, it's for our kids. And if you can teach them quantum, you can start to undo some of the problems to do with kids and iPads and blue light. So you can make quantum children and quantum babies. And even if and then there's definitely, mitochondria in humans are very adaptable, and we do get tolerant, and we will learn to adapt to things. But fundamentally, the mitochondria need the sun, and they need everything nice and in time, the clocks in the body all ticking at the right time. And then again, we can control our body clocks, and we can't control the weather in the UK, but you can control other things, and you can go outside. Like I was saying, there's always near infrared light, whether it's cloudy or not, and that's going to charge your battery, make your mitochondria happy, make your cerebral spinal fluid happy. So even if it's cloudy, there's always benefits to going out. There's some different bonus, and obviously it's hard to get burnt or anything when it's cloudy.
Yeah. There's always a benefit to being outside in nature.
Yes, exactly.
It's just going to balance the nervous system. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel happier, even on a cloudy day. Like I noticed the difference in my body and client's body. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But also, if you're not outside, you have to be inside around, you know, temptation of tech and, you know, other things.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're got so many good things that go, and I'm like, where do we go next? How about let's talk about the impact of sunlight on gut health and autoimmunity. What are your thoughts there? Does that, what is the impact there that you think?
Oh, it's massive because there are melanopsin receptors in the skin. So the whatever light shines on the skin, there's also melanopsin in the arteries and the blood. So the blood, the light information in the blood can give light information to the gut, and then there's POMC lining the gut. So it's like the gut microbiomes, the light makes the light, and then the POMC in the gut's like the screen or the reflector. But also the gut are like mitochondria. They're sort of inside the body, and they need to get information about what's going on the outside, because they make lots of things for us, like certain vitamins and neurotransmitters, but they need to do it at the right time. So they need to be in time with us. Also, non-native EMF's just invisible light that we can't see, and they don't like that either because it's sort of not natural. And then when it comes to autoimmunity, there's definitely a correlation between sunlight and the side of the immune system or the defense system that potentially could, you know, make mistakes and attack things it shouldn't, even though I'm not completely sure about whether that's how it works really. However, when people get more sunlight exposure, increase their vitamin D naturally, because there is a correlation between vitamin D and how the immune system functions. And I've looked at lots and lots of labs over time, and I have seen a correlation. So definitely using light and going outside more to manage autoimmune conditions, it can be hugely beneficial. And also, I think for some people it's that bad, they do actually need to move to a lower latitude. And there are reports from lots of people who've either moved to the equator or to the 30th latitude or the 20th, and found that their autoimmunity situation went into remission. There's obviously food choices again here, because when it comes to autoimmunity, it's not necessarily or always about light, even though light's really important. There's other things that could just provoke your body. So it's telling you, oi, you know, stop doing that. And it's happened to make an antibody, not because it's attacking itself, like say with Hashimoto's. I'm not sure why the body would suddenly decide to attack the thyroid. That thyroid antibodies, the TPO and the TGA, can sometimes be a little bit of a warning saying, oi, you know, stop eating peanuts, or maybe could you do a castor oil pack, please, or, you know, like a warning signal. But definitely, if people are doing everything right, you know, I know there are lots of elimination ways of eating, and people get rid of toxins and things. If it's not budging, 100%, the light's a huge factor for the immune system. And obviously, the more that you're in, the more you're outside, the protective side gets stronger, and the side that potentially could be harmful, if that's the actual true mechanism, gets dampened down. So, and also, like you say, it's free to go outside. But there's also more to autoimmunity, and fundamentally it's all, you know, whether you develop Hashimoto's or rheumatoid arthritis or ankylosing spondylitis, it's not you've got a disease, your immune system's upset, and just because of your environment or your genetics you happen to present these particular symptoms. But you do definitely have to work on what's bothering your immune system, because if it's bothered, you could potentially develop a whole other sort of set of autoimmune symptoms as well. So it is something that definitely is, you can put it into remission. Even if you've got more than one. I know people who've had 5. I think Dr. Clinton had 5 autoimmune situations. So I never like to scare people. I always want to say that there's proof, even in the scientific literature and with doctors who've seen their patients' antibodies go away, and people we know. So it's definitely worth looking into. But also exclusion zone water is really important for immunity. And histamine responses are all triggered by lack of, you know, water and exclusion zone water. And again, the histamine response is just going to provoke everything further. So it does all come back to light and water and magnetism.
Yeah. I was gonna say, well, we charge our, easy water by getting outside in infrared
Yeah,
light. So that's going to
exactly.
be huge for autoimmunity, histamine issues, and all of that. So yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. And then also with the exclusion zone, because it can flush things out, like I was
Mhm.
saying, yeah, maybe there is something in your body that it's offended about. Whereas if you've got more melanin and you've got more exclusion zone, it can't get into your cell to hurt it, but also it's much more likely to be able to be escorted out, and then whatever was provoking the immune system left by itself.
Mm.
And again, all aspects of sunlight would be beneficial there, because obviously you need the sunrise to set your body clocks, because if everything's out of timing in your body, you create chaos, and that's going to annoy things, including your defense systems. So the sunrise is really important, and that the central retinol pathway and the thyroid are really tied into sunrises. And if you don't have enough power or energy, you can't run your defense or immune system properly anyway. But then the UVA light that comes next is going to be important, because the UVA is the one which makes the melanin, and it signals via POMC. And that's again, the POMC and the leptin melanocortin pathway are very linked up together. And leptin, people think it's just an appetite and weight hormone, but it's really important for regulating the immune system. And that's a super sort of circadian molecule on so many levels. But then we've already talked about the vitamin D, which is the next phase of seeing a circadian rhythm, and how important vitamin D we make ourselves is for immunity. Then again, we've got the blocking of the blue light and sleeping properly, so we can make melatonin, and not just get to sleep, but also to be able to repair the mitochondria, because melatonin repairs them. Also, we make mitochondria in the day, but that's kind of different. That's more, sorry, we make melatonin in the day, but that's kind of different. So there are multiple reasons and factors to how a circadian lifestyle is really helpful for any kind of a condition, including autoimmunity, because lots of people I know who have autoimmune situations, they'll say one thing that makes their antibodies explode is stress. So a bad night's sleep primes us for stress, because we just overreact to things the next day. So again, the way to have a good night's sleep is to observe all of these quantum practices that we've sort of been discussing, from the sun rise all the way down to the sunset, and the blue light blocking. And again, just embrace darkness as well, because darkness, it can be really healing too.
Yeah, that was a big lesson I had to learn. Like when I
Yeah,
first learned about quantum, like, oh, sunlight, sunlight, sunlight. And then I'm like,
I
okay,
did
what do I
that.
what do I do in the winter? I'm like, oh, we embrace the dark and the cold. Like that was a whole different piece to learn. But you explained so many wonderful things, Sarah. It was amazing. And yeah, that we have those two different kinds of melatonin, right? We have that subcellular melatonin that we make, right, throughout the day, which kind of cleans up and repairs all day long. And then we have the pineal gland melatonin, which is also
Yes.
important. And that's only going to get secreted if we are honoring the darkness at night. And we don't want to keep pushing that back. Like I think a lot of us are pushing that secretion of that way, way back, way into the later evening, because we're not honoring the darkness, and then it's being secreted so late. And then our melatonin is still secreted early in the morning when cortisol is supposed to be rising. So that's making a lot of, dysfunction in a lot of people's bodies, and yeah, so yeah, amazing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then people are tired in the morning, so they drink more coffee, and
Mhm.
then the coffee can also inhibit melatonin. Sort of, it's not the blue light's much worse, but then people are
Yeah.
drinking coffee sort of in the morning, then for lunch as well, because they were tired. And then coffee's got, I think, like a half-life of 6 hours, so there's still a bit left around at bedtime if you have lunchtime coffee, and then the whole cycle starts again, that people don't quite sleep properly, the melatonin's a little bit off, and it's coming too late, and then the cortisol isn't waking them up properly. So that's a really good way of describing it, about the sort of the dance that cortisol and melatonin do together. But I think it's also really important for people to know that the mitochondria make melatonin all the time in the daytime, and that's why exercising outside, if possible, or with a window open in the gym, offers so much benefits. Because if you're locked away with just the blue light, and you're exercising and asking your mitochondria to work really hard, and they can't make melatonin as well as they could to repair themselves, the exercise can become, obviously I'm a big fan of movement and exercise, but I'm not a fan of something when it becomes detrimental, when the person doing it thinks they're doing something right and can't understand why they're getting worse, and it's their environment they're exercising in that's the problem, not them exercising.
Yeah, 100%. I have to chime in on that because I'm a big fan of exercise too. I love to exercise. I love to movement. And I used to always, before I knew about quantum health, where did I work out? Downstairs in my blue lit gym with my earbuds, right? And I was always injured. And now my gym is outside and I'm never injured and I have so much more energy and I recover so much better. And the recovery is just so different. And yeah, it's just a whole different world. And you just feel so much better moving your body outside. I love it. Like that's an amazing gym. So I challenge anybody listening to the podcast, make that one shift, right? Just move your gym to outdoors and you're gonna feel a difference. I guarantee it in your workouts.
Oh no, I love that because I think I sometimes do go to a gym inside because I just love movement. And we can open windows and doors, or
Yeah.
you can take an infrared panel in and not be ages in there and don't use your phone. And that's the other thing that's important. Like you highlighted the earbuds, that if you go to a gym and everybody's playing on their phone and looking at Amazon and cat videos and whatever else instead of working out, you've got not just the light problem. Now you've got like 25 phones and all the EMF. So
Yeah.
100% then the exercise becomes stressful for the body rather than beneficial. And we all know people that just work out all the time and they just seem to get like either less muscular or bigger, or they, like you said, they constantly go, oh, my back, my ankle, I've got this, that and the other. And I'm really glad you brought up that thing about the injury, because I think that's one thing that people who do want to be healthy or improve themselves, I always say injury will be the thing that stops you, not you being not motivated, and it usually is. So I think, like you say, that could be a game changer, especially for somebody that there are people who have had serious injuries of knees or backs and they're a bit scared of the gym, but they want to go. And I think what you've just said is really important, that if you are that person that's a bit afraid of movement, because I used to work teaching movement and we always get people who are scared, they're the people who really need to focus on doing it outside.
Absolutely. We're almost
100%.
out of time. And I just I
I
know this may not be in your wheelhouse, Sarah, but I just have to ask because I really want to know your opinion on it over the years you've been studying quantum now, is your take on the emotional relationship and trauma and so forth, in the impact of that in a quantum lens on our physiology. What would you say?
Oh, it's massive. I'm massively into mindset and, the ether and our biofield, that if we have sort of trauma or negative thoughts or we put out negativity, it's going to, we're going to draw it, because the ether or the 0 point energy is always drawing inwards. We put it out and pull it back in onto ourselves. So, and also the idea of water, it holds memory. So 100%, I think there's, things that have happened in people's past. And also when it comes to memory, it definitely doesn't get stored in our brain. So where's it being stored? In our water, in our morphic field, because nobody can find memories in the brain either. So we carry some of our consciousness outside the body. And of course, things like toroidal fields or torus fields, the heart being the major producer of our biofield, because the way it vortexes the blood, and whether the heart's conscious or not, I think it probably is. And we always refer to our hearts as, oh, my heart was broken, or from the bottom of my heart you have a heart of gold. So I think if somebody is really depressed or upset or had trauma and their heart is heavy, it again, it's like an energy system in the body. Anybody who's got a heart valve problem or atrial fibrillation will tell you they're exhausted all the time now because their heart is not pumping. But I think, we know when people have had, say, heart transplants, and they take on characteristics of the person who had the heart before them, not just simple things, but really profound things. And again, the seat of sort of emotions and things definitely lie in the heart, and it's like quantum central. And then when it comes to sort of poverty and heart disease, because I had to do a talk in a conference about this, and I looked into it in a lot of detail. And the reason that they came up with, it's not because people who have less money necessarily eat worse, because lots of wealthy people eat terribly and take expensive drugs, and then there are lots of people who are on lower incomes that are very active and they were healthy, but it's because they feel hopeless. And that was why there was more depression and more heart problems. And this is like a giant study. So feeling hopeless actually is harmful on a sort of physiological level. And I'm 100% into sort of the work of Joe Dispenza, but then a whole lot more. Like I could go on for ages about our mind shaping reality and quantum jumps, and Cynthia Sue Larson and stuff like that. So I absolutely 100% think on a quantum level, you know, it's not just our lifetime. We were talking about inheriting bad mitochondria, but we also can inherit sort of the morphic fields and things from our relatives. And, you know, I mean, past lives, I don't, like when I used to do hypnosis, I don't deny that there's some kind of access we've got to the past, who knows how. And then precognition, you know, like a quantum brain and people with temporal lobe epilepsy, people like Philip K. Dick and stuff, who definitely did see into the future. And then H.G. Wells is another one who definitely predicted future events. So when it comes to the quantum, like, you know, if humans can time jump like that, the emotional trauma and mood is massive. And also it's like we can sense other people's mood. Like when I used to work a lot with seniors, with people who've got dementia, it doesn't matter if they can't remember what they ate 3 seconds ago. If you come in a foul mood, they feel it. And if you're nasty to them, you think, oh, I can just shout at them because they'll forget in 3 minutes. Well, actually they don't. They remember they had a horrible day because you're mean to them, even though they don't know what they did. But the negative trace, whether it's the act of shouting that's done something to the water, or you've done something to their biofield, people with dementia will just feel be not happy, even though people say, yeah, but they don't remember what they did 5 minutes ago. How can they be happy with this nurse and really upset if it's that person? So yeah, definitely hugely into the whole, the mind stuff excites me more than anything, because there's so much that I don't know yet. And then the ether again is like another medium to propagate information that physicists don't want us to talk about, because it's inconvenient mathematically to have to do all these equations and add the ether in. But again, it would explain a lot of things which we know happen, but, you know, don't really understand why.
I love all that so much. I want to learn more from you, and
Yes.
looking forward to your future studies, current and future studies. And I think now is the time for me to join your membership. And can you help people know about what you offer, your membership and other beautiful services?
Oh yeah, I have a monthly membership group. But before that, I've got a Substack I've just started. But the Substack's perfect for people who are new or who've been following quantum for a while and are missing the basics. So it's still I'm when it gets up to 700 subscribers, which will probably be tomorrow, there's going to be less free options, but there's still a free option for people who just want to like stick their nose in. And we've done what is quantum, why it's not a load of nonsense. These are sort of important scientists, all in simple language. Then we've done light, just simple, and then we've done water, and there's like a post on it. So for people who like to read things, and it's just trying to put things in a place for people to read and have it simple. Then the next level up would be my monthly membership group, where people can come, and we have a forum, we have lives where you can ask questions, and I sometimes make presentations. Then I've got a couple of courses. There's a minerals course, there's a quantum foundations course, and then I've got lots of free PDFs that people can look out for. I've got a leptin PDF that's free, a water PDF, a quantum kickstart. So there's plenty of free stuff, things for people to buy, you know, later if they want to. And I've actually got the brand new quantum ketosis course for practitioners that's accredited. I'm just doing the final stages of the accreditation in the UK, and that means people get CPDs. You call them CPEs, don't you?
CEUs or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that level but the practitioner course is also for people who are really super keen and want to go deep. But then I've got like stuff that's free for people who just want to be curious, cheap things like the Substack's only $8 a month for everything, and that's you know, for people who like to read but don't want to, you know, see other people. And the group, you can interact with like-minded people and stuff like that. So yeah, there's plenty of things for people to, and my handle is just Dr. Sara Pugh or Busy Superhuman, and I've got YouTube, which is long form. I've got TikTok, which is sort of shorter an Instagram reels and pictures, which is sort of for people who like reading, and pictures and reels. And then I've obviously got the Substack, which is for people who like to read. And don't like, because some people don't like going on Instagram and Facebook because it's full of all sorts of oddness, whereas at least with Substack you can just go and read something and you don't get bothered by things.
Yeah, you feed the AI, you kind of get what you want though too, a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
So
yeah, all that can be found at busysuperhuman.com.
Yes, or just Busy Superhuman on your favorite social media platform, because I know people have preferences to things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, this has been amazing. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your wisdom with us. You are a wealth of knowledge. Everybody should definitely follow you, and you offer so much. So we really appreciate it. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
No, just to say thank you for accommodating, being so patient, because my other podcast ran a bit over and I was trying to escape, and then thank you for your patience over my headphone messing about, and thank you for inviting me. So I think it'd be nice to, meet up and do it again when hopefully I didn't rush too much. But sometimes when you have to condense things, it's actually better, because you can't waffle or go off on tangents and stuff. You can just get to the point. But thank you very much for having me.
Oh yes, we know. The pleasure was ours, and we'd love to have you back for a part 2 at another time. So that'd be amazing.
Definitely. Okay, awesome. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.